So Joe Biden is getting to the point where he needs another major legislative accomplishment, and he needs it pretty soon in order to be able to justify electing more Democrats in 2022, if indeed that is what he plans to justify as the midterm election season gets going. And I assume that Joe Biden is going to make that case that Democrats need a bigger majority in the Senate than just 50-50, depending on Kamala Harris, to break votes, that to break ties, that Democrats need a bigger majority in the House, a lead that actually shrunk in the 2020 election. And it's not exactly clear to me right now how Biden gets that legislative victory. So let's get caught up on what we have so far. As a platform, and I said this before, and I still continue to say it because it's the truth. As a platform, Joe Biden had one of the most ambitious, left-leaning policy platforms for any president that was elected in the history of the United States. Not the most progressive candidate ever, but in terms of who was elected, Biden's policy platform that he ran on is certainly well to the left of President Barack Obama's. But we are now in the phase of looking at actions rather than promises. It is the time where those promises are supposed to become actions. And without a doubt, building up the vaccination program, it was trash. It was what you would find on the bottom of your shoe and scrape off as you walk into your home. That is what Biden was handed by Donald Trump when it comes to vaccine distribution. And Joe Biden was able to take essentially nothing and turn it into a vaccination program that when we hear this term, the envy of the world about the United States, usually it's right wingers saying something that's completely untrue. It is quite literally the envy of the world, along with a couple of other countries, including Israel and the few places that have scaled up vaccination relatively quickly. We have so many vaccines. We're vaccinating tourists. We're giving vaccines away to other countries. That is a major accomplishment without question. Number two, Joe Biden signing COVID relief on early March 11th, I believe it was, and getting those checks out to Americans with zero Republican support, not with weak Republican support, not with barely any Republican support, with zero Republican support, not a single Republican in the House, not a single Republican in the Senate voting for that. And that was a very good thing. And that bill did other good things like extend the moratorium on evictions and on and on and on. OK, great. Now what? Now what? Because we are now 17 months from the midterm elections. I know it's crazy, but we're already in the pre-midterm phase. My initial thought was that the 2022 midterms would start kind of in mid-January is when you would really start to see that heat up, in which case Joe Biden needs a major accomplishment by the end of the year. Everybody I'm talking to who works with candidates is saying, we believe this is going to get started earlier. We believe 2022 is really going to start in the fall. By October, you are going to start to see much more activity in terms of midterms than you normally see at that point in time, which means what? It means Joe Biden needs something in the summer or by the end of summer. But hold on a second. The House and Senate are basically off in August, and they're off most of September. The Senate is scheduled for 5 days in August. The House is off in August. And what that means is that the last joint day in the House and Senate is July 30th, all the way until September 20th. So really, if you need something before the 2022 elections get going, you need something by July 30th. Is that even remotely possible at this point in time? Well, it's possible really only if Democrats decide we're going to do something via budget reconciliation. And if they're going to do that something, it probably needs to be infrastructure, because some of the other things that are being discussed, arguably, it would be a debate, but arguably can't be done via budget reconciliation. Budget reconciliation, of course, is a process by which you can pass something with a simple majority in the Senate rather than the 60 votes that are typically required, which today, because of the 50-50 split, means to get 60, you need all 50 Democrats plus 10 Republicans, or you need 49 Democrats plus 11 Republicans, or 48 plus 12, all unlikely scenarios. So Democrats are very much behind. It's an urgent situation right now with Joe Biden, and it has crept up sort of slowly. And with Joe Biden over in Europe last week and some of the previous week and the Putin summit and all of these things. The negotiations on infrastructure have slowed down. And the question now is, what is Joe Biden going to do to be able to justify electing more Democrats? Now, there have been tons of different ideas. There's been the tax plan. There's been the infrastructure plan. You know, this idea of Mayor Pete is ushering in a new era of infrastructure and it's going to include transportation. You've got to do it, though. I have to tell you, as of right now, the timing seems completely wrong on taxes. I don't mean I'm not in favor of what Biden has proposed. What I mean is, when I take the temperature of where the House and Senate are on balance, including Democrats and Republicans, I don't see the tax plan as being what gets done. If anything, of course, I don't see the tax plan getting done between now and July 30th. So at this point, the only last gasp that I see as a possible possibility, as a reasonable possibility, would be pushing infrastructure through with budget reconciliation by July 30th. And even that is seeming like a stretch. Now, let me say a few other things about this. There are things Biden can probably do in a much more simple way, which should be done and could make a difference. The moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, again, there's somewhat of a debate, but Biden can probably just extend that via executive order. He absolutely should do it. Because so many people are in the downward pointing part of the letter K in a K-shaped recovery, where the wealthy have done very well, but many others have not in this pandemic recovery that has been going on. And we'll see if that recovery softens, because there's some small indicators, little bit of an uptick in unemployment claims last week. Stock market looking a little bit soft recently, but we'll see. You know, a lot of these are day-to-day things. We want to look at bigger trends. There still needs to be more help. And so Joe Biden could just sign and extend the eviction moratorium, potentially could extend the enhanced unemployment if he wants to do that. So there are some small victories that Biden could maybe cobble together in the absence of a big accomplishment. But it is time. Now, the Republicans, this is a discussion of Biden because it's Biden who's president and it's Biden who will be making the case to elect more Democrats in 2022. This is one of the most disgusting Republican parties we've ever seen. Overtly obstructionist, even to a point of being hypocritical. Remember when every Republican seemed fine with Trump saying he wanted to do $2 trillion on infrastructure. Republicans fine on Trump's COVID stimulus 1. Republicans loving Trump's COVID stimulus 2. Now all of a sudden, where's the money? That's typical. OK, I mention it in passing, but if you've been following politics, you know that that is always the case. So can Democrats do OK in 2022 without a major Biden accomplishment? I think it's really tough. Can Biden justify his reelection in 24 without at least 2 or 3 major legislative accomplishments? Well, I think no, but we still have a long time until that becomes a reality. People want proof that their vote counts for something. Record turnout in 2020, lots of votes for Trump and even more record votes for Joe Biden. People want to see things happen and time is running out. July 30th in practice seems to me to be the deadline for some major legislative accomplishment. It's getting very late. And of course, they could come in during the break in August and September if Democrats decided we need to reconvene because we have an opportunity to do something. During the pandemic, and even at this point, I try to avoid physically visiting a doctor's office unless I really have to. And that's why I love our sponsor, SteadyMD Primary Care. You take a quiz, you get matched with a licensed primary care physician who's a good fit for you. You have a 1-hour virtual appointment and you start a meaningful relationship with your new doctor. After that, your doctor is available to you anytime by text, phone, and video chat. And unlike other services, this isn't some random doctor on call. Each doctor at SteadyMD has a limited number of patients so they can give you the personal attention you deserve. They can help you with anything your primary care doctor normally would: healthy diet, managing conditions, weight loss, sleep, depression, anxiety. You don't need insurance. It's just $99 a month with absolutely no other fees or copays for visits. Take the free quiz and see which doctor is a perfect fit for you. Go to steadymd.com/Pacman. There's no risk, no long-term commitment. The link is right underneath this video.